Welcome everybody to a brand new episode of our Coastal Fitness podcast, and by my side I have Ed Haynes, and we're going to be speaking about the changes that have been made in the CrossFit Games season. So there's a lot of stuff that has happened. Basically, no more regionals. Ed, could you start by maybe giving a brief overview of the changes that have been
Yeah, so I think in a nutshell, to keep it simple, is there are no more regionals. There is still going to be the CrossFit Games eventually. Qualification process has changed. There are now sanctioned events. So basically athletes now, as of the latest release, have 4 opportunities in terms of how they can qualify for the Games. First and foremost is the winners of the sanctioned events, which are going to be 16 apparently, are going to get automatic qualification for the Games, regardless of the CrossFit Open. Obviously country winners, so each country that has an affiliate, if you win your country you will receive a ticket to the CrossFit Games. If you finish top 20 in the world in the CrossFit Open, you'll receive a ticket to the CrossFit Games. And the last one that just released today is there'll be invites, and I don't really know what that means. So that's a big change up on the individual side. On the team side, there are no more affiliate teams anymore, so I'm not sure if the affiliate cup even exists. But now the idea of super teams has really kind of come to fruition, whereby 2 males, 2 females, anywhere around the world can form a team. I think qualification can come through 2 ways, either the Open, ignore that, not the Open. The only way you can qualify for the Games is by winning a sanctioned event that runs a team competition. And the news is right now, not every sanctioned event will run a team comp. So very interesting format.
Yeah, true. So there's a lot of changes and a lot of stuff that we still don't know. But the reason for our podcast is that we just want to give our general views on how this will affect the whole landscape of CrossFit.
Yes, well I think there's lots of caveats we could go down. Maybe starting with
the first
the
question.
athletes.
Maybe what were your first impressions when you realized these changes were actual? Really
so I think I think first and foremost it was a massive shock to the CrossFit industry across the world. We are still a very new sport, so I think evolution is natural. So really it's not that strange that this has happened. The sport's been continuously growing, and we all know about the potential limitations, things that are holding back the CrossFit Games, a very centralized system controlled by essentially one business, one corporation, or maybe even one man. That kind of had to change eventually. But I think initially the way that the information was released was a bit strange. Kind of came informally through a CrossFit media channel that was actually nothing to do with CrossFit.com. So personally, I didn't really read into it too much. Kind of thought it was just potential G-up, a bit of a laugh that someone was trying to create a bit of a stir within the industry. And I think initially when such a small amount of information was released, I think we were all doubting it a little bit. We didn't know the reason behind it, why we were doing it, and obviously more and more information started to drip feed through various channels. And eventually now I think what we know and what's been released so far, and we still haven't received an official statement, which is I think very strange as well. What we know is I think it's actually a really good thing for the sport on so many different levels.
And we're gonna delve into that because in our conversation before we started this recording, I realized how actually potentially could be a better thing. So let's start with the question: how will it impact the athletes participating in the sports, etc.? What is your opinion?
So let's perhaps start with the individual athletes. I think we can break that down probably into even more levels. So I think starting with the elite to start off with. The elites, I think it's going to really professionalize the sport. The reason I think it's going to professionalize the sport is previously earnings in the sport have been fairly limited. So we do know that the CrossFit Games is a really big purse. We do know there was competitions like Dubai Fitness Championships that were offering big prize money to people who participated, but that's pretty much it. So to really make this a career for most people was pretty tough unless you like the really small percentage of top athletes. So I think now with the opportunity to compete in more sanctioned events, and each sanctioned event has big money to be won, I think athletes are going to be able to actually make a really good living from it. And I think, as we know, we've seen it with so many other sports, the moment a sport becomes more professional and people are able to make a living from it, it grows the sport exponentially, especially at the elite level. So I think that's a really great thing. I think you're going to see more and more full-time athletes and more people, youngsters coming through really pursuing the dream of becoming an international CrossFit athlete, whatever that means. So I think that's a great thing. I still think, I think with the changes to the qualification process, a much bigger pool of athletes that now have the opportunity to make it to the games. So it's not so uncommon that you might have people in developing countries where CrossFit is new that actually have a real good chance of getting to the CrossFit Games. Now the CrossFit Games, it said they've talked about an elimination process, so I don't know if that first stage is going to be called the Games or it will be called like a prelim Games, not really sure. But essentially, it's just so much more opportunity for people. And I think taking a step down from the elite, even for things that people like the teens, masters athletes, currently their format hasn't changed, but I'm sure it will change. There's something more similar to what the elite guys and girls are doing. But even kind of like your scale division people, I think a lot of these sanctioned events are going to be running scale divisions. So now people who perhaps were either bubble athletes at the regional level, or people just kind of like exploring the sport for fun and looking for competition experience, there's going to be way more experiences and opportunities available in the world to kind of compete on a big stage that's potentially broadcasted on television with live audiences, maybe even small prize money, because I think these comps will be running things like team divisions, scale divisions, master divisions. So that's all amazing. I think it's a really good thing. I think there's just going to be way more global interest because we're pulling the attention away from the US. And this was kind of what Glassman said, was that currently the Games is viewed as a US dominated event, when really, like, you look at the podium winners every year, it's not necessarily dominated by US athletes, and it's a very global international event. So I think now they're giving precedence to the whole world to be able to be a part of this event a bit more. I think the team divisions is going to be, it's a huge shake-up. Previously a lot of gyms have invested in like recruitment. So like you look at the likes of Mayhem, even just kind of a lot of gyms around the world who have invested in kind of bringing good athletes to their gym to kind of create what we previously thought was a super team. That's not applicable anymore because there is no necessary benefit, or there are no rules to having people training in one facility. So now, top athletes who perhaps maybe they just fancy the team competition is a bit of a change, or perhaps are seeing that qualification as an individual is now potentially harder because for the elite it's going to be real tough to take up those spots, especially in somewhere like the US where there's only one qualification spot to the Open by winning your country. It means they only have the other option of winning a sanctioned event, and there's only 16. That's tough, and essentially becoming top 20 in the Open, all big asks. So I think the team division is going to be shaken up a lot. I think affiliates will stop investing so much in kind of bringing in potentially like high-level coaches or high-level athletes to be coaches, which I think is a bit of a problem in our industry anyway. So I think maybe we'll see a bit of a change up there, and it might be great for affiliates because they'll start to invest in kind of more in-house stuff and kind of like lower grade competitions that are more catered to the wider community. So I think it kind of has a knock-on effect to kind of create a bigger breadth of opportunity there as well.
Amazing. All these consequences, what will change for coaches?
So I think it's going to be interesting for coaches because right now, with all the information hasn't been released just yet, so a lot of us are kind of guessing. I definitely have some gripes with the current situation in a sense that I have an athlete whose goal's been to get to the games for a long time, and this is now the closest or the best opportunity we've ever had to kind of get him there. But at the same time, as a coach, you want to map out your season. You want to have an honest conversation with your athlete as to kind of, right, which avenue do we want to go down? What's the most realistic way to get there? Mapping out things like potential earnings if that athlete is looking to kind of get a little bit more from the sport financially. Right now, because they haven't released all the information, we just heard of 4 new sanctioned events today, but we still have 5 more to go. It makes it very hard to plan a season. So a lot of people right now are in the middle of qualification for the Dubai Fitness Championships, and that's a taxing 3 workouts, and potentially making it to the Dubai CrossFit Championships, I should say, and then competing and not making it, and then for suddenly 4 more events to get released later on in the year, which would have realistically been a much better target, but you wasted some really important time competing when really you should have saved that later in the year. So right now it's quite hard because they said they're going to release official statements before the Open. That's a long way away. So we have a lot of time before then to kind of put into place training, competition dates, peaking schedules, and possible avenues for qualification. We just don't really know right now. But I think for coaches, there's going to be a lot more thought's going to have to go into the season. Some athletes are still going to have to really target the Open as their only potential route for qualification. A lot of other athletes, experienced games athletes who are repeat attendees of the games, are probably going to be looking at sanctioned events. I mean, you look at if Matt Fraser wins, or whoever wins Dubai CrossFit Champs, essentially you have 9 months of preparation for the CrossFit Games with nothing else interrupting that path. So. Yeah, I think there's it could really shake up and change up, the landscape of this sport now. It's going to change up things like off seasons and in seasons. Potentially, just big changes.
For some people, it might be that they have to do multiple competitions. So that could potentially disrupt.
Potential. For someone who has, who's really highlighted the sanctioned events as a means of qualification, who honestly, realistically feels that they could achieve it. And perhaps they invest in 3 or 4 comps in the year and still don't make it. That's a really big toll on your body, but also you're financially having to pay your way to these competitions, and they're located all around the world. So that's a big time, energy, and financial investment that athletes have to make, and they still might not get there. So that's just kind of the beauty of the sport as well. The best athletes are going to be rewarded with early qualification and more ideal games prep. The people who aren't so gifted and talented, you're going to have to work a lot harder to get there. But there definitely are more avenues to make it now, which I think is great.
Yeah, absolutely true. Great. So I think these are the general things that we wanted to shed some light on. Do you want to add something to it?
No, not really. Other than just to say, I think we're going to see a big globalization of the sport now. I think in the initial hype and the initial buzz that Greg Glassman came out saying was that we want to take the emphasis off competition, and by doing that they gave power to the sanctioned events to kind of let them run it the way they wanted. But I actually think it's created more of a hype with competition. I think there's more and more people talking about it now. There's more and more people wanting to either spectate or attend these big sanctioned events around the world. And I don't necessarily think that detracts the attention away from CrossFit as a competitive sport. I think it actually helps it. So, whether that was their objective or their goal, I'm not really sure if they achieved that, but definitely global interest should really increase. I also think that by giving sanctioned events the opportunity to kind of run the weekend how they want, they've said that some events are going to be running 4-day comps, 3-day comps, 2-day comps. They're all going to be hiring their own judges. They're going to be sorting out their own prize purses and sponsorship deals. So what's going to happen is that the comps that do these sanctioned events really, really well are going to raise the bar in terms of the level of competition, in terms of the actual standards of how to run an event. And it's just going to basically create a new benchmark all the time. So I actually think it's going to lift the standards of the sport. I think CrossFit, been at crossroads a long time, for example, the judging debate. How do we get better judges in the sport? How do we professionalize judging? I think someone now in these sanctioned events is going to work out a way to do that. And once that one person is doing it, does it, those other sanctioned events are just going to copy. And it's actually going to make the sport, over time, I think much, much better. We've now got, 16, 17 big heads trying to figure this thing out rather than just one person in charge doing it. So I'm actually really, really excited for it. I think it's going to be really cool.
It's going to be interesting. Thank you so much for your time and shed some light on this. We'll definitely be posting some more information the moment we get more information from CrossFit HQ.
Definitely.
And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.
Sad. I was gonna say sad.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something.
Is that salad? It's alright. Good job.